There's this video Jehovah's Witnesses released a few years ago at one of their conventions about shunning. It's encouraging their members to shun their kids.
I just wanted to talk and to hear their voice. I missed being with my family. And they thought about reaching out to me. But they knew that if they had associated with me, even a little, just to check on me, that small dose of association might have satisfied me. It could have made me think that there was no need to return to Jehovah.
You gotta be straight up broken inside to see things this way. Well, they just came out with another video on the subject, so I figured we'd take a look at how they think you should treat your children in a perfect world. Let's get into it.
My parents were missionaries when my mom got pregnant with me. Mom and Dad were very zealous, and people just assumed that I would follow in their footsteps. And for a while, I did. I was the model child who was always held up as an example. Sure, the attention boosted my self-confidence, but it also put me under enormous pressure.
Yeah, Jehovah's Witnesses have missionaries. Most Mormons will go on mission trips at some point in their lives, but almost no Jehovah's Witnesses will become missionaries. They're people who go overseas to preach to people who wouldn't otherwise hear the message. Only the holiest of the holy get to go on mission trips in Jehovah's Witnesses. In some cases, the Watchtower Society even pays a stipend to missionaries to go over there and knock on people's doors. Being a missionary for Jehovah's Witnesses is a whole new level of big deal. Let's keep watching.
I envied kids who didn't have to live under so many restrictions. And if they got the truth later in life, they got to experience the best of both worlds. But then at my new job, I met Eric. He truly understood me. He made me feel special. And I loved him. I loved him.
Outside relationships are strictly forbidden. If you marry an outsider, it's assumed you're a terrible Jehovah's Witness who will never amount to anything. If you're dating an outsider, then you're a bad person by default, and they'll usually start pre-shunning you. They won't officially start shunning you until you break a serious rule worthy of being disfellowshipped, like doing stuff before you're married. But they view that as an inevitability. They also view outside relationships as inevitable failures, which is what they're depicting with that last line there.
And I loved him. I loved him.
Obviously, they're implying it fell apart. That's how it goes when you date a dirty outsider. Let's keep watching.
It wasn't long before our relationship became intimate. I felt guilt at first, but after a while, it just seemed that this is what two people who love each other do. And I was willing to give up everything for him. Everything.
Honestly, you shouldn't have to give up anything for it. You should be able to explore your own life and your own feelings without being cut off from your family, which is an inevitable consequence of dating him in the first place in the eyes of Jehovah's Witnesses. The organization can't legally imprison you for breaking a rule. They can't legally attack you or something, so they have to find other legal ways of controlling you. They create this environment for their members and tell them they aren't allowed to leave. You can't date outside the religion, you can't really have outside friends, and everything you do in life has to be focused on Jehovah and nothing else. So now if you break a rule, they can pull the rug right out from under you, and your entire life comes crashing down. You don't know anybody on the outside because you are forbidden from being friends with them. Even your spouse and your children stop talking to you. They kick you out of the house. They refuse to answer the phone for you. In some cases, even your employer is a Jehovah's Witness. That's a lot more common than you'd think. Congregations run their own businesses and employ everybody in the congregation. They don't need jail when they have the threat of losing everything you've ever owned hanging over your head. Let's continue.
This eventually led me to do things I later regretted. I ended up getting disfellowshipped.
Sonia Erickson has been disfellowshipped.
It crushed my whole family.
Okay,
It honestly shouldn't be like that. Her life is her life. She can do what she wants, but even the way they set up the scene is telling. She's sitting away from her parents. They won't even sit near her. I'm surprised they gave her a disapproving glance. You're supposed to cut off contact completely, pretend the person is dead. It's genuinely, deeply wrong. They're her experiences. It's her life. Let her live it. If they did let her live her life, though, they wouldn't be a cult. That's what differentiates a cult from a religion, the level of control they have over the members. This is why not all religions are cults, and not all cults are religions. You don't find this kind of behavior and control in your standard run-of-the-mill Methodist church. They're not all this extreme. Let's keep watching.
Later, my father explained to me that I couldn't remain in the home because I refused to change my lifestyle. He told me I was having a negative effect on my younger brother and sister. Then I'm out of this house. I was determined to do what I wanted. When I left home that day, all I could think about was Eric. I didn't even care that my parents' hearts were breaking.
Wow, dude. Way to blame the victim. These poor parents who kicked their kid out of the house and refused to talk to her for the next 15 years are so mistreated and persecuted. You know who's really to blame for this situation? The Watchtower Society. The organization that is the Jehovah's Witness religion. That's who's to blame. The control tactics they've implemented only serve to benefit the Watchtower Society and nobody else. It doesn't benefit the parents. It doesn't benefit the kids. For the record, this exact situation played out with me too. I've told this story many times on my channel, but I was kicked out of my house on my 18th birthday. I was still in high school. I had to drop out and support myself by working at Burger King. When I was kicked out, I had to crawl in the window of this girl I knew from school so her grandparents didn't know I was there. What they do to people is wrong. That didn't benefit my parents, and it didn't benefit me. It benefited the organization. Before we continue, I want to mention something. If you like what I do and you want to see me continue to do it, you can support me by checking out my Teespring or checking out my Patreon. YouTube has been extremely unreliable lately. Patreon gives me the stability I need to continue making videos no matter what YouTube is doing. I also started streaming on Twitch recently. I play games while reviewing long-form videos like JW broadcasting episodes, among others. So if you like long-form stuff, check out my Twitch channel. If you aren't into Twitch, you can watch edited versions of the full breakdowns I do on Twitch on my other YouTube channel, Telltale Unfiltered. You might find it interesting. All links are in the description and the pinned comment, of course. Anyways, let's continue with the shunning videos.
I didn't think about the devastation and disappointment that I had caused them. I blamed my parents for my situation. I even blamed Jehovah. My family missed me so much, even after all I had done. What helped them to remain loyal to Jehovah for the many years I was disfellowshipped? It was the Bible account of Aaron.
They shouldn't be conflating mistreating your children with loyalty to Jehovah. Honestly, none of the people she was blaming are actually to blame in my mind. I mean, the parents hold some blame for being brainwashed suckers, but really the people who hold blame are the governing body members of Jehovah's Witnesses, who continue to reinforce the decision that shunning is the right thing to do. They could put out an article tomorrow that denounces shunning and it would all be over. Just like that. They could form this religion into something that isn't a cult anymore with the stroke of a pen and it would be over. But here we are, talking about the fact that they shun people to this day. It's truly evil.
Jehovah directly judged 2 of Aaron's sons and put them to death. In this case, Jehovah asked Aaron and his family not to mourn, in order to show the entire nation that they supported Jehovah's judgment. Mom and Dad saw that they needed to be loyal, just like Aaron.
That is straight up insane. Jehovah put 2 of Aaron's sons to death and specifically told Aaron not to be sad for losing his kids, so everybody else would know he supported his decision. That sounds like some crazy dictator behavior right there. That is unhinged stuff. And the fact that Jehovah's Witnesses put that in the video in the first place is a message to people dealing with this situation. You're supposed to do the same. This is propaganda, and every part of Jehovah's Witness propaganda is placed intentionally. There was a study a while back where people were asked to clean up after dogs. A miserable job by all accounts. But half of them were given pencils to hold in their mouths while they did the job. The people with pencils in their mouths rated the job as less miserable than the people without pencils. It was essentially forcing the people with pencils in their mouths to smile. What happens on the outside is reflected inside. The organization has been exploiting that little piece of human psychology for a long time. They know if they can get people to do something, but smile while they do it, they'll eventually come to enjoy it, or at least not hate it. By completely pushing it out of your mind and reminding yourself of Jehovah every time you realize the horror of what you've done, it shuts down your emotions. It's called an emotion stopping technique. It's a hallmark of cults.
They loved me and wanted me to come back to Jehovah. I tried to contact them. I just wanted to talk and to hear their voice. I missed being with my family. And they thought about reaching out to me. But they knew that if they had associated with me, even a little, just to check on me, that small dose of association might have satisfied me. It could have made me think that there was no need to return to Jehovah.
Really not sure what shunning has to do with quote-unquote returning to Jehovah. You should return to an organization or a belief system or whatever because you want to return, right? Because you believe it, not because you're being coerced. How do people not see right through this?
So I decided to go to the Kingdom Hall for the first time in many years. It made me realize just how far off track I had gotten. I was determined to qualify for reinstatement. Nearly a year later, my reinstatement was announced to the congregation.
Sonia Erickson is reinstated as one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
I was so happy. The brothers and sisters welcomed me very warmly. Being back together again with my family and Jehovah made me feel so good.
This is called love bombing. This is another point on the bite model. We can see a perfect example of the love they extend to people around them and then use it like a weapon when it becomes necessary. Conditional love is another sign of a cult. To the outsider, this all seems completely obvious, but Jehovah's Witnesses inside the religion don't realize it isn't right. They don't know any differently. They don't realize that civilized society doesn't do this kind of thing. And aside from all that, a lot of outsiders don't realize just how evil it really is inside the religion. This video is a good example of one of the many messed up things Jehovah's Witnesses do on a regular basis. They consider it part of their worship. Let's keep watching.
But when I'm alone, I struggle with whether Jehovah has really forgiven me. One time I was so distraught that I called my father for help. He comforted me with the words of Isaiah 1 verse 18, where Jehovah says that our sins, which are like scarlet or crimson cloth, can become white like snow.
You dated an outsider. You dated an outsider. You didn't kill anybody. There's a big difference. The only reason you view this as wrong is because your parents spent 15 years not talking to you for it, and the organization drilled it into your head from birth. It is so sad to see people fall for this. What's even more sad is that this isn't Jehovah's Witnesses' only video about it. They've been putting out propaganda pieces encouraging people to shun their kids for years. They released another video November 2016. Check this one out.
My name is Gabriella. Ben and I have always enjoyed attending the meetings. But lately, it's been difficult. Something was missing. Our son.
So what, did the kid die or something? What happened? They're going in his old room like he's gone forever. These next couple clips rely heavily on visuals, so I'll explain what's happening for an audio audience.
It was like watching a movie of someone else's family. couldn't believe this was happening to us.
Agora temos o anúncio que será feito pelo nosso irmão José Luiz.
Our son Levi was no longer one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
They see him walking in the door and they're looking at him like he's crazy. He goes to his bedroom, packs up his stuff, writes a letter to him, and leaves. Notice how they blamed him again. It's all his fault, just like the other one. This one doesn't say exactly what he did, but he wrote them a letter saying he was leaving and never coming back. And the natural assumption is that he leaves if he's going to be disfellowshipped. It would be unacceptable to stay in contact with your parents if you aren't part of the religion.
I kept wondering how he was doing. Was he okay? Then, as hard as the past few weeks had been, it just got harder. I knew what the Bible said about quit mixing in company with anyone who is not living according to Christian standards, but I never thought that scripture would one day apply to me.
She gets a phone call from her son and she refuses it because Jehovah's Witnesses have convinced her to not, quote-unquote, mix in company with non-Jehovah's Witnesses. They actually use other verses to justify shunning, and for the record, the Bible does not endorse shunning, in my opinion. The main verse Jehovah's Witnesses use to justify shunning is 1 Corinthians 5:11. It says, quote, "But now I am writing to you that you must not associate with anyone who claims to be a brother or sister, but is immoral or greedy, an idolater or slanderer, a drunkard or swindler. Do not even eat with such people." End quote. That seems pretty clear, but when you have the context to understand what was happening, it becomes a little less clear-cut and obvious. This is after Jesus died. His people were trying to set up congregations across the area, establishing the early church. There was somebody in the congregation that did something wrong, and the leaders of the congregation asked the Apostle Paul what to do about it. He wrote back to them in his first letter to the Corinthians, "Don't even eat with such people." The Corinthians wrote back and said, "This is kind of harsh. Are you sure this is what you want to do?" And in the second letter Paul wrote to the Corinthians, he did a full reversal. 2 Corinthians 2:7 says, "Now instead you ought to forgive and comfort him so that he will not be overwhelmed by excessive sorrow." Jehovah's Witnesses conveniently leave that verse out when talking about whether or not they should shun people. Remember, I'm an atheist. I have no dog in this fight. If the Bible did encourage shunning, then I'd just say the Bible is wrong for encouraging it. I don't have a vested interest in the Bible being right. This is just one of those moral issues that the Bible didn't get wrong. Paul took the shunning stance at first, and then reversed it in his next letter to the congregation. Why do they shun anyways, despite the fact that the Bible doesn't support it? Because it's easier to control people when you have shunning in the toolbox. People are afraid to question you, afraid to even think about something that could risk it. They don't want their lives to fall down around them, so they never ask questions. Jail would prevent unwanted behavior. Shunning prevents unwanted thoughts. Let's keep watching the clip.
That night, after the meeting, I told Ben about the text I received from Levi. I told him everything. How I miss Levi so much.
This is a critical moment. The two are going to decide whether or not they'll defy the orders from the organization, thus risking the possibility that they'll be shunned too. If they don't comply with the rules about shunning your kids, then the congregation will shun you. They literally view it as a mental disease. They even call people like me mentally diseased. Those are the words they use. They feel they have to cut the mental disease out of the congregation completely. If you talk to somebody with the disease, then you need to be cut out too. So let's see how they depict them reacting to the situation.
That night, after the meeting, I told Ben about the text I received from Levi. I told him everything. How I miss Levi so much, but that I also wanted to be loyal to Jehovah, like Korah's sons. Ben admitted that he too had been struggling with feelings like mine. But then, he said something that I hadn't thought of. If we were to stand between Levi and the discipline he needs, we would in effect be blocking an expression of Jehovah's love from reaching him. In fact, It's our very loyalty to Jehovah that could save his life.
We agreed to continue to put our trust in Jehovah and stay loyal to him.
Interesting how they frame it, right? The organization doesn't want to risk people asking questions, so they ban them from talking to their own children if they leave their religion, and then they frame it like it's being loyal to God. They failed in this critical moment. My mom failed too. She did the same thing. Decided it was better to not talk to me for 15 years and destroy any possibility of a relationship at every turn rather than be disloyal to Jehovah, aka the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. The two terms are interchangeably used at this point.
It's been 5 years now, and while Levi still hasn't returned to Jehovah, I haven't given up hope on him. Until that day, I'm staying busy as a regular pioneer and focusing my energies on helping others learn about Jehovah.
If you have to shun somebody, throw yourself deeper into the religion. That's the message I'm picking up from this. It's incredibly sad that there are people out there right now going through this at the hands of the governing body. They just wanted to live their own lives and do their own thing, and instead of allowing them to just leave, the religion forces their families apart. People have no idea how deeply this kind of thing affects you. It's terribly wrong, and I won't stop until we draw attention to it. Anyways, that's all I've got for you. Thanks for watching, guys.